everyone, to the HockeyNorth podcast. I'm your host here, Tyler Croome, joined today with my good friend Brendan Pawliw. Brendan, how are you doing today?
I'm well. It's been another eventful hockey weekend here in BC's northern capital with the U17s and the PG Cougars, but lots of entertainment, a lot of positive results, and happy to wrap up another week and look forward to another one here coming up.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a busy one here, especially if you're a hockey fan. The U17's in action. We'll get to that a little bit later with the weekly Cariboo Hockey Weekly report. And some exciting hockey between the Prince George Cougars and the Vancouver Giants here on home ice, which, I mean, those two teams, whenever they're playing together, usually you're in for a good game. And I think, there's these two games over the weekend really lived up to the expectations that we're all used to. But now we're going to transition over into Brendan Pawliw's weekend recap for Junior A and Junior B players.
First off, Prince George Spruce Kings, Lyndon Macau, uh, a goal rather in the Friday game against the Merritt Centennials, a 7-5 win for the Prince George Spruce Kings. They split a pair down in Merritt against the Centennials. Of course, Lyndon, one of four Northern products on the Spruce Kings. Hockey North athlete Scott Cousins, his first BCHL point in Friday's 7-5 victory over the Centennials. John Harrington, 2 goals in Thursday's loss to Merritt, pointless on Friday's win against the Centennials. And of course, Jordan Fairley, 9-3-0 on the season, 2.37 goals against average, 913 save percentage. He stopped 23 of 28 Merritt shots in that win on Friday. Diego Johnson, the University of Wisconsin commit of Fort St. James, 7 points, 14 games this season. He played in just one of the two games against Prince George at home, but did return for a Sunday Tilly against the Vernon Vipers here over the weekend. So 2 of 3 games for him. Taking a look at the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League, Jake Phillips Watts of the Kamloops Storm, 8 points, 18 games for Kamloops on the season. Phillips Watts with just 1 assist over the weekend in a pair of road games down in the KI. He's also playing with his brother, fellow Quesnel product and former Cariboo Cougar, Colton Phillips Watts, the goaltender. 2 games wins for him for Colton. He allowed 4 goals and a win on Saturday, followed by just allowing one in a Sunday victory as well. 0.92 goals against average in Sunday's victory, stopping 36 of 37, 973 save percentage. So Colton Phillips Watts, 2-0 so far with the Kamloops Storm of the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League. Sticking with the goalies, Nelson Leafs goaltender Jasper Tate, who was a guest on this podcast, as well as Diego Johnson of the Merritt Centennials earlier on this season. 6-1-0 with Nelson, 2.59 goals against average, 924 save percentage. Jasper picking up a win over the weekend against the Summerland Steam. As we take a look at the game sheet here, Nelson winning 5-0 over the Steam in that one. The Leafs out shooting Summerland 42-22 in that game, so a pretty easy victory for Jasper in that one. Osoyoos Coyotes, Carter Yarish, former Cariboo Cougar, 24 points in 13 games, 51 PIMs to go along with that, although 32 of those came in one game. Yarish, a goal and a helper in a game on Saturday against Sicamous there. Osoyoos Coyotes winning 5-3 at home in that contest. They were 1 for 6 on the power play, out shooting Sicamous Eagles 43-28 overall. And of course, Carter Yarish, one of a handful of Northern products on that Osoyoos team. Another one is Jack Henderson of Quesnel, 21 points in 13 games for him. He also had a goal in that victory against Sicamous, who was also held pointless in a game on Remembrance Day there against Princeton Posse. Kenny Giroux, also Prince George, former Cariboo Cougar, 4-3 on the season. For Osoyoos, 3.08 goals against average, 905 save percentage. He did not get the win on Saturday in the Osoyoos net down in the KI. He did take the loss in the Remembrance Day tilt against Princeton. 42 saves, 45 shots in that one, 933 save percentage, of course. Zach Leslie and Ethan Flores, former Cariboo Cougars, also members of the Osoyoos Coyotes. 100 Mile House Wranglers still near the top in the KI Junior Hockey League. They have almost a dozen Northern products on their roster to the 100 Mile House Wranglers as we take a look at the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League standings. 100 Mile House 4-1 in the season, so actually a transition year for them. Normally they're at or near the top in the KI, but taking a closer look at the standings, not so much this year for 100 Mile House. Taking a look at the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League for us, Chase Pacheco, Port Alberni Bombers, the former Cariboo Cougar, 20 points in 19 games. He had one goal in a game on Sunday here. That was against the Lake Cowichan Kraken in a game the Kraken won in overtime against Port Alberni. Of course, his teammate Kenyon McIsaac with the Bombers as well. He had no points in that game, in that 5-4 overtime loss. So that does it for the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League. Taking a look at the Canada West Conference, Ella Boone of the Trinity Western Spartans splitting a pair of games with the UBC Thunderbirds over the weekend. A 4-3 win on Thursday was followed up by a hard-fought loss on Saturday against UBC. So Trinity Western splitting a pair against the Thunderbirds. Calgary Dino splitting a pair at home against the Manitoba Bisons in Canada West women's hockey action. Of course, Brette Kerley, Keagan Goulet, our guest this week on the podcast, picked up a 4-0 win on Friday. That was followed up by an eventful 5-4 loss on Saturday to the Bison. So Dinos, much like the Spartans, is splitting against their rivals, their Brooklyn Hutchings, of course, former Northern Capital, getting in some game action for Trinity Western. Carson Niven redshirting so this season for the Spartans. Piper Alexander, 3 goals, 3 games so far this season with the St. Trojans. She was in action over the weekend as well. She was playing against fellow former Northern Capital alum and Kiera Muller, who's playing for Red Deer Polytechnic of the ACAC Conference. So 2 former Capitals lining up against each other this weekend as well. And in Canadian Sports School Hockey League action, Brooke Norcus of Prince George on the Delta Hockey Academy's female U18 prep team. She had 4 games over the weekend, picking up assists in 2 of those games for Delta. Also, other players in action, Maria Eyre of the Northern Alberta Extreme Female U18 prep team. 15 points, 18 games overall, Maria Eyre. 4 more games over the weekend as well. Her best game was a goal and a helper on Saturday. That came in a 3-2 loss to the Shawnigan Lake School female prep side in a game where Northern Alberta was actually outshot 56-30 in that game. So quite an eventful contest there. And of course, Maria's teammate Casey Dittner, also a member of the NAX Extreme. She played the same 4 games as Maria, held pointless there. Ellie Howe of the Okanagan Hockey Academy's U18 female prep team. She's, of course, from Prince George. 5-3 overall in the regular season. She picked up 4 consecutive wins for Okanagan over the course of the long weekend. So a very fruitful weekend for Ellie, picking up 4 consecutive wins for Okanagan. Ellie Ouellette, her teammate from Fort St. James, 4 points in 12 games. Ellie Ouellette with 3 points over the 4 games there for Okanagan. Hunter Henry, former Cariboo Cougar, scored 2 goals over the weekend for the Burnaby Winter Club of the U17 prep rankings. Scored 1 goal on Remembrance Day, followed by another one on Sunday. And of course, Haley Armstrong of the Rink Hockey Academy in Kelowna. She's a member of the female U18 prep team. She's got 12 points in 15 games this season. Armstrong lighting it up with 2 goals and 1 helper on the Friday against NAX. That was a 12-0 win for Rink in that one. So a bit of a rout to say the least. as Haley Armstrong exacting some revenge against her former teammates and friends, of course, with the Capitals and Casey Dittner and Maria Eyre. And on Sunday, she also had a goal and a helper in a 6-1 win over Shawnigan Lake School U18 female prep. Rank out shooting Shawnigan in that one 52-25. And that is your wrap up from over the weekend for all the Northern hockey products that were in action at those levels.
Right on. Thank you very much for that, Brendan. And it's always good to hear about how our Northern athletes are doing from, just around the province and even the country in this matter. On to our Cariboo Hockey Weekly report. We had two teams in action. And we'll start off here with the U18 AAA Cougars. They were out in the Okanagan Classic out in Kelowna. And I think a really cool opportunity for a lot of the players on that team, as it's a bit of a mixed bag. You have, some teams coming in from the BC Elite Hockey League, the U18 AAA division, but you also have a few teams coming from Alberta, and you have a couple hockey academies that are taking place. And an interesting thing about that is a lot of players, they end up coming across a decision to make with their families when it comes to where they want to pursue their development. Obviously, there's the BC Elite Hockey League, which is often a very good choice and a much more affordable choice for families to take, but then you look at the counterpart of the hockey academies, and the level of prestige that some of them do carry. And so it's cool to see those organizations go head to head, as I think development wise you very much get to see see where things match up in a brief little tournament like that. With that said, the Cariboo Cougars, they went 2-3 on that tournament, but one of their two wins came at a 5-2 victory over the Delta Prep Hockey Academy, which that is a pretty cool thing, I think, for this program to see a win come out like that. And now we're going to be going on to the U17 AAA Cariboo Cougars. They hosted the Greater Vancouver Canadians here in town, and started off Saturday night with a huge win. It was a 4-2 victory, very convincingly when you look at the puck possession for the Cariboo Cougars. Lots of back and forth action, lots of odd man rushes. Goaltenders were spectacular, very hard hitting. I think it's one of those games that, when you're there, it feels like one of the best games you've seen. And they're on Sunday, here today as we record, not the result the Cariboo Cougars were looking for. They dropped that one 4-3, splitting the weekend 1-1 with Greater Vancouver. And with that, that's the end of our Cariboo Hockey Weekly report. I'm going to pass it off back to Brendan with our interviews with Brette Kerley and Keagan Goulet.
Of course, I mentioned this earlier on the podcast, but former Northern Capitals standouts Brette Kerley, Keagan Goulet, who were once teammates with the Northern Capitals, are teammates again with the Calgary Dinos. Of course, a second-year student out of Williams Lake. Keagan Goulet in her first year with the Dinos. She's from Fort St. John. Kerley, of course, has that gritty style up front. Keagan Goulet, obviously, a lot of magic with the puck from the back end as well. And they talked about not only growing up in minor hockey-wise in their communities, as well as reminiscing of their time with the Northern Capitals, but also what it means to be coached by former women's national players such as Carla McLeod, Kelty Apperson, and Emily Clark, who are all on the Dino staff. And here's my interview right now with Keagan Goulet and Brette Kerley, now of the Calgary Dinos. All right, I'm with a pair of longtime teammates, former Northern Capitals, and now with the Calgary Dinos, Brette Kerley and Keagan Goulet. Brette, I guess first and foremost, how's life in Cowtown right now for both of you?
It's pretty good. We just had a snowstorm last night, so the roads have been pretty bad. But other than that, it's been pretty good. We both had weekend off, so we both went home, which was good, and now we're back to it.
Guess for both of you, I'll start first and foremost. Just maybe talk about how the season so far is going for both of you with the Dinos women's program, and just kind of where do you kind of see yourselves right now as you continue on with your 2022-23 women's hockey campaign?
Yeah, so our season started off pretty strong. I think we've split pretty much every weekend. And I think it's been pretty good. We've gotten lots of points. We have come out with some crucial wins. And I think going into like the finishing this first half of the season, it's been pretty good, and I think that we have a pretty good team, and I think I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely as like a first year, it's a good group of girls and definitely a different level of playing style. And yeah, the split weekends, pretty good.
So maybe talk about, I think, Keagan, you're a pretty offensive defenseman. You have Brett obviously has some of that offensive talent too. Obviously, you like to play a little bit more gritty as well. Just maybe talk about adjusting from AAA to playing post-secondary against bigger, stronger women that are older than you by a couple of years. How do you try and compensate for that?
Yeah, definitely don't get to rush the puck as much anymore. Definitely have to pick and choose because there are girls that are definitely more talented out there, more skilled. And I still like to keep a offensive playing style because that's just how I like to play, but definitely have to pick and choose.
What about for you, Brett?
Yeah, like definitely, like this is my second year, so I've kind of got used to a little bit of the speed of the play. Definitely don't get to shoot the puck as much and like have a lot more pressure. And I mean, every team's different when we play against them. Like UBC is a super fast team. Like every team's like good team. Like you never have a rarely a game where you get blown out or you blow them out. So I think that's also like what I enjoy about the league. And everyone's in close competition, especially this year. We have a lot of like all the teams are even, and you don't even know like who you're going to be in competition with the next weekend. Mm-hmm. So I think that's good.
Now let's take it back a little while here. Brett, you grew up in Williams Lake. Keagan, you grew up in Fort St. John. So maybe outline some of your earliest memories playing hockey and what kind of got both of you inspired in playing this sport.
Definitely my older brother. I used to skate on the rink while he played hockey, so I think that's kind of what got me into it. And throughout my journey and stuff like that, I played boys most of my life, and then when I went into bantam, I played midget girls. So it kind of just went from there, and there was nothing really left in Fort St. John, so going to the Caps was the next best thing for me. And that's kind of where it all went.
Yeah, and I think like on my side of things, pretty much the same growing up in a small town. I played boys hockey pretty much all the way until bantam. And then I started playing girls hockey, and I think that's when I loved the game, but definitely started to develop more for a love of the game, like just developing those friendships with like all different girls, and then winning provincials when I played in Williams Lake in my second year bantam was like a huge kind of like confidence booster. And then following year going up and playing Northern Capitals, definitely building like the friendships and with like players, coaches, like everyone through like Cariboo hockey and everything was super like confidence booster, and just kind of pursued my career in hockey.
Mm-hmm. Did either of you have any, well, you talked about your brother Keagan, Brett, but either one of you have any like NHL players at all that you idolized at all growing up?
Definitely Drew Doughty. Yeah, he was my idol when I was younger. I just liked his style of play, and it was always fun watching him. So that's who I kind of looked up to. I liked his offensive style, his strong defense. That's my idol.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I like really looked up to like Wayne Gretzky. I'm an Oilers fan. So like growing up, I like looked up to him, and then like filling his shoes, like Connor McDavid, obviously like just a natural goal scorer and just an all around great player. And I really like look up to him for sure.
Let's look back on your time with the Capitals. You both played together with the Caps for a good couple of seasons. You were part of that leadership group, Brett, that include another teammate in Paige Outhouse, who was the captain when both of you played in the first ever midget female outdoor classic ever in all of Canada. So maybe talk about, making the move from a smaller community, moving out to Prince George and playing on a team that, you got the exposure, and now you're both ending up in the university ranks in Calgary?
Yeah, for me, definitely going from Williams Lake, which is like really small town, and like going there with like my two best friends was definitely easier for me, like Paige and Piper, obviously. And I think like going into that bit like Prince George and having like a lot more fans and going there with like girls from all over northern BC was super cool, and like just meeting a lot of people. And I think like overall, like being on that leadership group going into the Winter Classic was super cool. And I feel like having that experience just pretty much like made my experience up there a lot better.
What about yourself, Keagan?
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool experience. Most girls don't get to experience that or get chances like that. It's more on the boys' side that you see those things happening, and to see it on the female side was pretty cool. It was great opportunity, got to share it, and then playing Greater Vancouver, where they don't really come from much snow and stuff, was kind of a cool experience also.
So maybe touch on, obviously, too, you played last season, of course, Keagan, with the Capitals. You were one game away from winning it all. Just maybe touch on, last season's team, which was pretty stout. I mean, you had a scholarship to UFC, you committed, Brooklyn Hutchings, Carson Niven, Ella Boone, all going to Trinity Western. Piper's obviously out in SAIT. She graduated that program same time as Brett. But just maybe touch on, obviously, that team, as well as, Northern girls like yourself, as well as the teammates that I just mentioned, finally getting recognized and getting those opportunities to play at a higher level that may not have been there, even 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely our core group. Yes, last year was definitely deep. There was a lot of girls with a lot of talent. And I think with RJ and Sprague and Mario all helping us, like they kind of helped us reach out and get to where we need to be, especially RJ. He was really helpful with that. I remember going to his office and like asking for help, and he's been through this and knows kind of the recruitment side of it. So just that kind of help, and all the girls, like, yeah, getting exposure and stuff. I think especially when the girls like Hutch and me and Haley all went to Team BC, that was pretty good exposure too. And just the tournaments like Regina and stuff, like those opportunities that we got definitely helped.
I'm just going to say, what does it mean to you to be part of that Team BC gold medal winning team that won that Western Regionals in Manitoba?
It was a great experience. Like, I mean, kind of sucked that it was COVID and stuff, and it was kind of all over the place and didn't get to play or try out that one year. But even playing in that last year was pretty spectacular. Just the group of girls from all over the place. Most girls are playing Div 1 and stuff, like seeing that higher level. It kind of helped going into U Sports too, knowing that playing against those top girls and then going to play in top girls against U Sports. So
what would both of you say has been the biggest adjustment going from AAA to university? Not necessarily playing the games, we've already touched on that, but just going from smaller center to a much bigger city, as well as maybe managing your studies a little bit more closely than maybe you had to do in high school.
Yeah, I would say like going from high school to university has been a big adjustment. Last year I was online for university, and this year I'm back in person, and it's just like finding that balance is super hard. And I think like once you find it, it's a lot easier. But I think that university is a lot more like you need to be there. You need to keep up with your work because there's no teachers that are going to be telling you that you have to hand in your assignments and stuff. And like you're on your own for pretty much everything. And like obviously like living away from home and doing everything yourself is a way bigger adjustment. Like we both billeted for 3 years when we were in Prince George. So I think like having that was a little bit easier of a transfer when we came here, but I still think it's a little bit different when our parents are a lot further away.
Yeah, like the speed of the game is definitely different, and managing your studies, I would say, is a lot harder because there's no one really there telling you what to do, or you need to do this, you need to do that. You kind of have to keep up with yourself, and there's like Brett said, no billets and stuff. So it's kind of like you have to keep becoming an adult because you have to keep up with your studies, hockey, all that.
Has it been hard to get around in the much bigger city?
I don't leave campus very often.
Yeah, I live on my own, so I have my own car. So, and it's pretty easy. Like I don't really go anywhere other than here, and then the university, our rinks on campus, so it's pretty nice. Like other than that, it's been pretty good.
What's the support like for the women's hockey program out in Calgary? Do you get a lot of fans out to your games? I know that Calgary has a lot of university varsity teams at the U of C, but just in terms of the women's hockey program, what would you kind of say the support's like for the Dinos where you are?
Honestly, like compared to like our men's hockey team, we definitely don't get as many supporters, but we still do have quite a few fans at our games. We don't necessarily pack the rink, but we do usually have a few fans at least. Like our home opener, we haven't had many home games this season. I think we've only had like 3, 4. So I think like maybe further in the season, I think that we get a little bit more exposure like on social media, and maybe more people will come out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's lots of friends, family that come out. Like my brother and his friends are pretty big supporters. They come out like every game. You see like some guys from the volleyball team, other girls from other schools, which is kind of neat that other schools come and support you too.
Mm-hmm. So maybe touch on obviously, we've touched on obviously, the support. We've touched on the campus life as well as, adjustments going from the Capitals to here now. You're from Williams Lake, Brett, and I did an interview earlier with Rachel Lone, who's the captain of the Capitals now. She's also from Williams Lake. She was telling me that she actually looked up to you and Paige and Piper because she was a couple years below you in age groupings, and she kind of followed your example and stuff like that. Did you have a lot of local people? Like I know I talked to Paige earlier as well, and she talked about how a lot of the parents were passionate about upping girls hockey where you were. Is there any specific people that you kind of leaned on or looked up to back home at all in your home community?
Yeah, definitely growing like in Williams Lake, there wasn't a lot of female hockey. I always had to play up to like up a year or two with the older girls. So definitely like looked up to a lot of my leadership group when I played up, which was like Cassidy Herrick and Brooke Call and like Sienna Monaco and other girls like that. But mostly like Piper, Page, and I pretty much just kind of drove each other because we didn't really have those girls that really went anywhere other than finish midget in Williams Lake and just kind of continued education somewhere else. But like other than that, like I followed pretty much Paige and Piper everywhere. Like we played Capitals together, and honestly, like the drive that pretty much drove me was like even like having like those younger girls looking up to me. Now like in Williams Lake, we have I think like 3 full female teams, which is like we've never had that before, and like I feel like that's kind of what motivates me to keep pursuing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. So maybe talk about obviously the coaching staff at University of Calgary. There are a lot of big names on the coaching staff, a lot of them that have women's national team experience that are available to you. what do both of you do to try and maybe pick their brain and kind of go through certain situations or scenarios if maybe things aren't kind of going your way on the ice? How do you try and lean on your coaches and maybe other resources like that to kind of stay up in your game and to take it to another level?
Yeah, like definitely coming into it, like you are learning a lot all the time, and definitely just honestly learning individually every single day, but also as a team. So I think like definitely having like those like girls that have huge names, like being on our coaching staff on the ice with us every single day has been super like almost inspirational for us. They're super easy to approach and ask a question, even if it's like after a rep in a drill or whatever, and you just think that you did something wrong. I think that's a super huge thing in our program, is like having like really approachable coaches and able to talk to them. We do video pretty much, I think like once a week, which is super huge. And I've never done that all through midget. And I think that's definitely something that coaches should incorporate. And like personally, I can go and have video just personally one-on-one with my coach, which I also think is super important. But I think like just having those coaches and support at all times is just what elevates the game.
Yeah, like they're definitely not afraid to come up to you and say like, oh, like ask you a question like, why did you do this? Kind of makes you think more instead of yelling at you or telling you like, oh, you did this, this, and this. They kind of ask you questions and like you kind of have to process it yourself a little bit. And I think that makes everyone a lot better, especially knowing instead of just assuming other things that happened when, I don't know. I don't know the word, but
do you almost find that approach more helpful, just having them go through that scenario with you, having them understand your frame of mind, and then maybe telling you after what should have happened and what the outcome could have or should have been in a specific scenario?
yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know, they kind of like quiz you almost, like make you say the answer, which is really helpful because it helps you process it better.
Mm-hmm. Do either one of you have any pregame superstitions or things that you kind of do to get yourself psyched up before a game?
I definitely like my sewer ball. I definitely don't think I can play without playing sewer ball and just having that little bit of fun time before you get your head in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say like I get to the rink and get into my warm-up gear and tape my stick like usual, and then play sewer. And then I don't know, I like to have a really good off-ice warm-up before I hit the ice, just kind of get in the mindset. But yeah, other than that, just like kind of hang out with the girls and kind of just get into game mode.
How far do either one of you want to go with hockey?
As far as it takes me, honestly, like if I play professional women's hockey, that's kind of where I want to head towards, but however far it takes me.
Yeah, and I agree with Keegs. I think like the pretty much like wherever it takes me. Not a lot of options with women's hockey, but I feel like it is a good opportunity. Like we have a few alumni from my team last year who are playing in Austria and like in Europe. And I think like that's super cool, like just getting to travel and playing the sport you love and taking a break from work. So I think like kind of pushing back reality a little bit would be kind of nice.
What's the one thing you'd like to see improved upon or maybe done better with women's hockey as a whole? And when I say this, we obviously know that registration for women's hockey is up a ton across Canada, so it is growing. But past the grassroots level, what would you like to see done better or improved upon to make sure that women's hockey remains viable at each and every level?
Definitely giving girls opportunities. Like I know when I was younger, I didn't have very many of those. Like there wasn't very many options for me. So I think just giving those opportunities for the younger girls coming up and giving them the chance to play and be a part of the hockey experience and not just being kind of one-sided like girls, boys almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think like overall, like I think it's definitely improving a lot. I think more like streaming maybe like I don't know, because I feel like it's just men's hockey on TV all the time. And I feel like having that women's hockey and like having the younger girls seeing the women play on TV and like wanting them to like setting that goal for them, I think is huge. And I also feel like having more female coaches like on the bench is definitely big. And that comes from like, I guess, like alumni coming back. And like, I feel like that's a little bit more of a thing that needs to happen too. It's like having those girls that have been through programs coming back and showing them like where hockey can take them instead of just having like people that mean really nothing.
Mhm. His final thoughts I have for you, or final question I have, any personal or team goals that you have for this season?
Definitely just kind of playing my game. It's my first year, so just making new friends and yeah.
Yeah, I think like for like personally, yeah, just play my game pretty much, just give it all and try to get better and just do it all. And then I think for a team, I think just make it as far as we can. Like last year, we obviously didn't get the outcome that we wanted. So I think like doing better and doing like succeeding this year and at least trying to make playoffs. So I think that we have a team to do it this year.
All right, Keagan and Brett. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do this interview with me on our Hockey North podcast. And it was a pleasure to watch and broadcast your games while you were with the Northern Capitals. And I'm sure we can do this all again here in the future.
Yeah, thanks for
Awesome.
having
Thank you.
us.
All right. Thank you.
All right, and that was our interview with Brette Kerley and Keagan Goulet. And what are your final thoughts there, re-listening to the interview there, Brendan?
Well, I just think, both players, they want to go as far as they can in women's hockey. And like a lot of the women players, just talking about what's needed to keep that demographic going. Obviously, that age group and that demographic, is on the uptick across Canada in terms of registration and players. And it's an uphill battle to climb, but I'm sure at some point they'll be able to find some more stable ground, whether it's at the professional ranks or what have you. But it's nice to see a couple of northern kids thriving once again at the Canada West level, and it just seems like the university ranks are just filled with Northern Capitals now. I mean, these aren't the only two Northern Caps that have suited up for the Dinos. If you remember in years past, under the first tenure under Mario Desjardins, Kelsey Roberts of Kitimat, the standout goalie, along with Sage Desjardins, who was a star forward with the Caps during that exact same time, also suited up for the Dinos as well and had good standout careers at the U of C. So obviously the Calgary Dinos believing in that program the same way the Trinity Western Spartans do about the Northern Caps, with obviously Brooklyn Hutchings, Carson Niven, and Ella Boone also in there as well. Victoria Beyer from years gone by also suiting up for Mount Royal of the U Sports League as well. Obviously, also mentioned Kira Mulder down at Red Deer Polytechnic, Piper Alexander, ACAC, as well as a whole slew of others getting exposure south of the border for scholarships. And it's just nice to see that the northern kids, getting that exposure and getting these added opportunities in it, and it just further puts the program on the map here, not only on a regional basis across the province, but on a national one as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, for the time that we've had spending with the Northern Capitals and covering that program, I mean, it's not hard to see, how good the talent is here in the North. And it seems, even last year, we had a lot of these players age out and move on to other opportunities. And you look at who's filled in the gaps, and, they're still playing good hockey. You're still finding athletes in that program rising to the occasion. And I think that's a really cool thing to see. Because I remember when I grew up playing hockey, it was very much male dominant, and not, that was just the way it was. And for a lot of us, we had girls playing on our teams here in Prince George, and that was just because they didn't have, most of the time, not enough girls participating to create full teams. But now it's very much quite the opposite. There's a lot of female athletes getting involved early, and it's a thriving program now, which is really awesome to see.
I couldn't agree more, Tyler.
All right, and we'll leave it off with that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Hockey North podcast. We really hope you enjoyed our interviews with Brette Kerley and Keagan Goulet. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Bye for now.
I need to know.